Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer. A few weeks ago, Andy Sparks and I took a trip up to the Portland area to look around, and one of our stops was in Forest Grove, Oregon, home of SakéOne, a cool sake brewery. Now, while we were there, Jennifer Brownstein gave us an extensive tour of the facility. So extensive, in fact, that I'm going to cut the tour into two parts. This first part that you'll see today is from the beginning to just before fermentation. And then in a couple of episodes, because Steve and I are going to come back next time and share some holiday ideas with you, in a couple of episodes we'll pick up the tour from fermentation to the tasting room where Andy Sparks, what a lucky guy, got to taste some delicious sakes. But right now, let's start at the beginning. Take it away, Jennifer.
Hi there, welcome to SakéOne. I'm Jennifer Brownstein, and I'm going to share a little bit about something I'm very passionate about, sake. One thing you may not know, it's brewed from rice, a traditional Japanese beverage, but we are the only American-owned and operated sake brewery, not just in the world, but on the planet. And we have been producing sake, or rice wine, for a little over 10 years, and we're right here in Forest Grove, Oregon. Right behind me we have one of our traditional brands of sake. We make numerous styles, but since our inception we've been introducing our Momokawa brand of sakes, and these are dedicated to traditional Junmai Ginjo sake, premium sake. We're talking the really good stuff. So sake that's meant to be served chilled and is going to offer all sorts of beautiful characteristics. Over here we have one of our other styles of sake that we produce. In addition to the traditional styles, we're also producing something a little bit more modern, something a little bit more fun and fruity, and our Moonstone sakes are devoted to fruit-infused sakes. In fact, we were the first sake producer to commercially release a fruit-infused sake in the world. So we actually began as an importer in the early 90s, in 1992. In fact, we've been importing sake for about 15 years. The relationship with the esteemed Mirai family brewery, brewery that's been producing exquisite sake for really 6 generations, about 200 years. You know, and they were an integral part with helping establish our brewery. One of the main reasons, the primary reason we're located in Forest Grove, Oregon, is for the purity of the water. In fact, the head brewer, Koizumi, from the Mirai family brewery, came to the US and tested the water in several locations and determined that the water here in Forest Grove, the Oregon that flows off the eastern slope of the Oregon coastal range, is ideal for brewing sake. So there's another key critical ingredient to making sake. So in addition to the water, we also need rice, and we can't use just any table rice. We do use sake rice. Ours is American rice. We use a short grain that's being grown in the Sacramento Valley. And when you're brewing sake, it's important that not only are you using a fine strain of rice, but you're also needing to polish the rice. And how the rice is polished, to what degree, helps to determine the quality and the grade. Not all of the breweries in Japan polish their own rice, but this is a step that's really critical in the process of producing sake. So we've taken it upon ourselves to mill our own rice here on site just to ensure the quality. Now here's an example of the rice just after it's husked and it's brown. Now what we want to do is actually remove the exterior layer. There are fats and proteins that impart a bitter quality to the sake, and the more you remove, the more you're able to get to the heart of the rice grain. What's called the shimpaktu. This is the starchy center, and this is going to allow you to uncover all sorts of beautiful characteristics later on in brewing. So this is where the steaming happens, but there are a few steps that happen prior to the steaming. So what happens up here is we're washing the rice, so we're removing the flour that remains behind from the polishing. And then we're soaking the rice just to maximize water absorption, just prior to steaming the rice. And you know, this is somewhat similar to the type of steamer you would use at home, except on a much greater scale. This is a kettle steamer, and it's forcing steam through the rice to cook it. And what happens is it falls right down here onto a conveyor belt. And at that stage, the rice is, as you can imagine, it's awfully hot. It's about 195 degrees. A junmai sake, this is a term I mentioned before, is a pure rice sake. And when you see junmai on a label, you know that the sake is brewed with 4 basic ingredients. So in addition to the rice and the water, we also have yeast, sake-specific yeast, as well as koji. And koji is a mold that actually breaks down the starch and converts it into fermentable sugar. So what happens here is, following the rice being steamed, it's cooled. There are some fans that actually cool down the steamed rice about 100 degrees because we need the rice to be at a cooler temperature in order to be able to apply the koji. And so this actually travels on the conveyor belt into our koji room. And actually we're going to pop in there in just a moment and be able to see the only traditional koji room in America. We've looked to find a way to actually marry old world and new world brewing techniques. And this is our koji room, very traditional room for producing koji. This is the another key ingredient I mentioned in brewing sake. This is a mold spore that's used to convert the starch in the rice and convert it to fermentable sugars. The process takes about 2 or 3 days. You know, our koji room is similar to a sauna. The walls are lined with cedar. This is traditional and antibacterial. It keeps the room clean. It also, well, being wood, it breathes and it helps to create the perfect environment for the koji to grow into the rice. And this happens, the heat and the humidity causes the koji to grow in the rice, and it spends about 2 days in this room. This is a pretty labor-intensive process. It's actually spread out over the bed, and the koji is actually hand applied to the rice. It's actually make sure that it's evenly distributed over the grain. And then at that point, it is wrapped up with cloth, kind of like a giant burrito. And at that point, it's actually transferred. That all happens in the room behind me, and it's transferred into this room and broken up, spread out over this bed, and we're controlling the temperature by using fans. So 2 days later, the result is our koji rice. Now, koji actually offers quite a bit of flavor to the sake as well. Our koji spores are supplied by our sister brewery in Japan. You're going to taste a little of the flavor here. This is going to be a little bit chewy, and it'll taste a little bit slightly sweet, actually. And now we're ready for brewing.
Be sure to tune in a couple of episodes when we'll finish our tour. Come and visit us on the web. At basicbrewing.com, you can find archive lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Introduction to Extract Home Brewing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and our latest edition, Introduction to Wine Kits. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to james@basicbrewing.com, steve@basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.